just get right into it. Look. Women's Rugby World Cup out here making announcements for their venues. And I think it's actually kind of exciting that they're already doing this. This is that 2-year prep. I've been a big believer that one of the reasons that I feel like rugby has a chance outside of its doom and gloom is because of the fact that the women's side has had to be very, very creative. If you guys listened to my last episode last week, I really talked about the fact that the women have been cursed and also been provided the advantage of being very underestimated. And so they make decisions like a broke industry, which means they're creative. They make things that they have to stand out a little bit. And of course, you got to love being able to see what they're going to be able to do moving forward next. So with the Rugby World Cup 2025, we already have establishment. It's going to end up being on August 22nd to September 27th, 2025. It's going to be the biggest Rugby World Cup, women's Rugby World Cup that we've ever had, with 16 teams, 32 matches, and 8 venues. They put together kind of a dope a dope video. Shout out to my boy Leandro Akanji out of Argentina. This man is probably one of the biggest, I gotta say, one of the biggest promoters of women's rugby as a guy, because obviously there's other women that have really done it, but as a guy, probably one of easily the biggest promoters of women's rugby. The man is connected. But he dropped the video for the Women's England 2025 reveal. I'm going to talk it out a little bit for those who aren't going to be able to see this, but get a chance to take a look at this. So, all right, check this out. All right, so the games are going to be kicking off at the United Stadium at Sunderland and ending at Twickenham Stadium. To go to York Community Stadium, Alford Community Stadium in Manchester, Franklin Gardens in Northampton, Ashton Bristol, Brighton and Hove Albion Stadium in Brighton and Hove, Sandy Park in Exeter, and trajectorying the entirety of the England community. All right, so for whatever it's worth, hey, look, they're hitting all the stadiums where their premiership rugby women's teams are going to all be at, which I think is actually a really good look. Give them a chance to obviously promote them, and again, it gives it a chance to provide a new look. Now, why do I actually have an ulterior reason for why I want to talk about this, because I think this is going to be really significant to the development of the development of the women's rugby game. So the last Rugby World Cup was 2021, 2022, after the pandemic that was in New Zealand. I think a lot of it was lauded for being one of the highest attended. It had arguably 150,000 people who attended the games, a completely sold out stadium for the England versus New Zealand finals match, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Numbers. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I didn't really believe those numbers. Not because I don't think that they sold out. I do think they sold out. I just don't think the viewership was as good as 2017 when it really was knocked off. Why? Because New Zealand was locked up. They were locked up. So like the 2021 New Zealand Rugby World Cup was limited. Players were limited, audience limited. Everybody that went to it lived in New Zealand. And you basically didn't have, I know New Zealand was active because they were isolated. But I also feel like they didn't have anything else to do, so they went to it. Whereas for me, I think the pinnacle that this 2025 Rugby World Cup actually is going to be going up against, and literally in actual record numbers, is the 2017. And look, if you listen to me, I will laud this Rugby World Cup for mother freaking days, because this one was a phenomenal Rugby World Cup. This one legitimately was like a game-changing Rugby World Cup. Like, I'm talking about, it had better viewership than probably most games. It had peak viewership of 2.3 and 3.2 million viewers for a game. It had 45 million views across all platforms. The stadiums are small. This was in Ireland. Obviously, the stadiums are small. They only said they had about 45,000 people who attended the games. And this was games that were not greatly promoted. All right. But they were open. They were like legitimately accessible for once, online and on TV, but mainly online. And these were performances. All right. You had the beast mode of Portia Woodman. You had uh uh um oh my goodness. You had the our rugby sevens women backlining for our rugby 15s forwards, um and just like absolutely dominant. England showing out. England versus New Zealand final. France with Safa and Daya really showing out. I mean, like some of the best runs that I think that we'd had in rugby. You had people like oh my goodness. I always forget her name and it's so bad. So I'm not going to say it because it's embarrassing because she is legitimately one of my favorite players and I can't believe it just slipped in my mind at this very moment. But like it was so good. So I actually think that this 2025 Rugby World Cup actually has a chance to absolutely surpass anything that last 2021 2022 Rugby World Cup actually did, and subsequently what the 2017 did. So let me make my points. Number one, 2021 2022 Rugby World Cup suffered from distance. Like the timing was terrible for most Western nations, from England to the US, South Africa. Not South Africa, maybe so much. No, South Africa as well too, because they're kind of lined up in the same time zone as Europe. South America, like most of your viewership didn't watch the game. Like they didn't watch the game. It was terribly promoted, horribly promoted, because they didn't just have any time. Like they really didn't have any time to do what they wanted to do. Including for that, I do think that the play was good, but again, everybody was so underwhelmed by the lack of playtime that they had during the pandemic. So you're just not getting the best out of everybody who is doing their thing. So I don't feel like that one was a great representation, even though they tried to really laud it up because of the attendance in person, which is great. New Zealanders and really showing up for it. But this one, my goodness, yo, we got again England coming back, home team as strong as ever. We got I feel like maybe not the US, but France has really built up as a 15s program, really shown out. Ireland is ascending. Canada is killing it. It's all within a time zone where your biggest populations of viewership actually exist, which would be, again, obviously England, the US. I think Brazil is in it, so you're going to have that market, even though it's still growing, but you're going to be seeing it come out from there. I do expect to see a lot more of the African nations kicking in because there's a lot more development now in the women's rugby programs than there was in 2021 and definitely since 2017. Significant development from there. And of course, the stadiums are bigger. You got the premiership audience that's already existing in that area. There's no distractions like there was for WXV, which add that one, WXV being one of the dynamic adders to the storyline of developing into Rugby World Cup 2025. I give them all the credit. I think this one will end up being the biggest and the standard bearer for women's Rugby World Cups moving forward. I hope to see the dynamic play. That's why I really want the women to show out. I kind of hope some of the rugby sevens women kind of like do their final send-offs because they're going to be in their early 30s, most of them. So you're going to have to start stepping back from sevens. But I really, really hope like people like Ileana Marr, Nia Tapper, homie out of UCF, really get a chance to show exactly what they can do from the 15 side, because they didn't do it this year because of everything. Rugby World Cup sevens was happening the next year, and then the Olympics, and they had to pick and choose which one they really wanted to get done. So you didn't get to be able to see our full force. And a lot of people will say like, oh no, the program should be absolutely separated. And I say, you're out of your damn mind. Like, no, we are best when everybody is on the field at the exact same time. Chris Thomas, my goodness. I'm sorry, Chris. I'm a massive fan. And since your UCF days, I don't know why it slipped my mind, but Chris Thomas coming back, one last hurrah. That would be the U.S. team that I think actually dominates in that. Sammy Sullivan bring her in because she does 15s as well too. So I think that we could see something like that happen, and I think you could see a huge jump up for that Women's Rugby World Cup 2025. Just my thing. All right.